Hello and welcome to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah, and I'm excited to share a financial topic in today's video, specifically 8 ways that our spending has changed since being on quarantine for the last 6 weeks or so. At the end of the video, I will also talk about the stimulus money that my husband and I received from the government and how we ended up spending that as well. And before we get started, I think an important thing to address is that my husband and I lived a frugal lifestyle before this. So you're not going to see dramatic changes here. These are very realistic changes that we have personally made, and it actually hasn't dramatically changed the amount of money we're spending. If you are looking for more generic spending tips that help us live a frugal lifestyle, there is a video I did in the past that has 40 of those ideas, which is linked below as well as up in the cards. Let's get started. The first big spending change that actually was a lot of money coming back to us had to do with summer conferences being canceled. I was actually going to be attending 2 business conferences this summer, specifically for my teacher business, and one of them was completely canceled and the other one has gone virtual, but they reduced the ticket price. So essentially between those two, not only was there the cost of the conference, but there were also the cost of the hotel. We have typically been the people who pay in full for these kind of things in advance, so we have about $800 coming back to us as a result of those conferences being canceled. So that is kind of a starting point. Obviously, I was disappointed that the conferences got canceled, but on the bright side, since I like to see the positive in things, we do have $800 coming back. In general, our biggest change that we've noticed is that we have been doing fewer grocery trips, and when we are going grocery shopping, our total ends up being quite a bit higher because we are trying to purchase for an extended period of time. We previously were trying to go no more than every other week once. We had a larger trip when we went to Costco recently, last week. So we're actually trying to make it 3 or 4 weeks without going back. We're able to buy a lot of the, bulk items, pantry items, freezer items, things that, will last longer. But we also have that paired with imperfect foods. They used to be imperfect produce. I haven't talked about them recently on the channel, but they are essentially I don't want to say a grocery delivery service, but it's kind of what they're doing. They try to take food that wouldn't maybe make the cut for aesthetic standards, or if it's surplus items and produce, to give at a reduced rate, and it helps prevent food waste. So that's actually been a great way to get some of the fresh produce in without having to go back out to the store to purchase it. What we're doing now with groceries is quite different than what we were doing before the quarantine. Before, we would probably go to the grocery store. We do have a variety of grocery stores in our area. We're very privileged in that way. I think there's about 10 grocery stores within a 15-minute radius driving for us. So normally we'd probably go to 3 grocery stores during the course of the 2 weeks. Much smaller trips, as well as we might pick up certain items from one grocery store and then others from another one. So I think that's been the biggest shift for us for groceries. We're not purposely trying to store too much food around the house, but definitely have a little bit elevated numbers than normal. And overall, the dollar values have not really changed on this spending. A third change for us has been a slight increase in online ordering. We have not been people who order a lot online, but there have, in the last 6 weeks, I think, been 2 or 3 things that we've ordered that normally we would have probably just popped into a store to get, but just given the understanding of wanting to limit our outside exposure as much as possible, that has been a priority. So again, it's all within reason, but that's just something we've noticed. We also have actually ended up doing a little bit more out-to-eat meals than we have previously. Now, part of this is because in January and February, we did like a no-spend challenge. And so during that time of 8 weeks, I think we only went out to eat once. And even then, it was pickup. We don't really actually have any sit-down places that we enjoy going to in our area or that have, good options for us for the price. So because of that, it's typically, a fast casual place that you get your food to go. So we actually have upped that quite a bit to 1 or 2 times per week. And the main reason being, I guess the 2 main reasons being, number one, a couple of them are local places that we really want to support as much as possible because we would hate for them to, go out of business during this time. And they have a great contactless pickup where you call your order in and then they just bring it out to your car. As well as I think just the extra time at home. It is a fun little diversion for us. Again, everything is contactless. We're not actually going into any place. You just stand outside and they hand it to you, or you're in your car, one of those two for the places we've been going. And so for us, that's one of the ways that, we're able to continue supporting these different businesses and restaurants, but also, it's kind of a fun little treat for us. The next way my spending has changed had actually been to finally install a bidet on one of our toilets here. Now, if you're outside the US, this is old news. The US has been embarrassingly behind the times and not had bidets on toilets here. But it is an amazing way to reduce environmental impact because you eliminate the need for toilet paper, or a lot of toilet paper, at least to reduce it. Now, installing a bidet was one of the things on my to-do list for a really long time period. And sometimes you've got those projects that you want to accomplish, but you just keep putting them off for whatever reason. But two main factors that inspired this. Number one, the massive toilet paper shortage, of how so many people could not get toilet paper and had to look into alternative options. It's like, well, I don't want to be so dependent upon this one resource. As well as, I was so grateful to be approached by the company Toshi, hellotoshi.com, and they actually offered me a bidet that I am excited to be talking about to you guys today. And my husband and I have been using it for a few weeks now, and we really love it. I was able to install it all by myself, and while it did take me a little bit longer than I initially hoped, I also had to kind of teach myself about how a toilet worked and different parts about how to do some of it. I find it incredibly easy to use. Our model is the Toshi Classic, which gives you some flexibility in terms of the angle of how you wish to use the bidet, as well as the pressure that you wish to use. And this is something that I'm really happy we've installed too, because not only does it leave you with a much cleaner feeling, which I enjoy, but it also allows you to cut down dramatically on your toilet paper use or completely eliminate it. Since you're actually getting clean, before using the toilet paper, really the only thing you have to do is pat dry, essentially. So for us, this has been a great change, and I will leave the link to check it out, the one we got, in the description field of this video. Another change with our spending has been haircuts. Now, I personally have been cutting my hair for a while. I'm actually probably due for one pretty soon here, but I had not yet cut my husband's hair before until this time. I think for people who have shorter hair, it tends to be more noticeable when they need a haircut. And I had actually been offering to cut his hair for years, and he had not been interested. But because of the times and he wanted a haircut, we went ahead and did that, and it was a lot of fun, and I think it will be something that I continue doing long term. Just not only is it a great way to save, $15-20. We usually go to the cheaper places if we were doing that, but it's also a way you can actually get your hair cut more frequently rather than having to wait as long to try to save money. This one's pretty obvious, but as a result of not going as many places, our gas spending has decreased a lot. Now, I personally don't have my own car at this point, but my husband does have a car that he uses to drive to work, which at this point, being a teacher, school's been completely online, so he hasn't been driving there. And because of that, in a 6-week time period, we only filled the car up once, and even then, it wasn't really needed that we fill it up, but we just felt like with prices being very cheap at the time and just the overall unknowns of things, we felt like it made sense to go ahead and take care of that. The final way our spending has changed during these times is that there have been a few periodic treat yourself kind of purchases, I guess is the best way of saying it. While I've definitely not been the kind of person who does these more splurge expenses in the past, I think it's, given the times and the landscape, it can be, a fun way to sort of mix things up a little bit. And my personal splurge for this that I'm implying here was actually to purchase a bag of matcha tea. I've talked about in the past, I love matcha so much. And I stopped buying it, I think a few months ago because of the caffeine. I thought that I was extra sensitive to caffeine, and maybe that's why it was taking me a longer time to fall asleep. But after a couple months without it, I did realize it was actually not the caffeine. It was just my own energy levels and natural excitement about life, which makes me have a lot of energy even, at the wee hours of the morning. But that being said, I have had a lot of fun bringing it back in to my daily life. I have been starting my day with a homemade matcha latte, and it's just a fun, simple way that I'm able to kind of set up a routine and focus on some of that self-care, if you will, in the morning. And I'd encourage you, if there are certain individual acts, buying a container of tea is not necessarily a dramatic, crazy purchase, but it's just been a nice, positive change that I have personally enjoyed. Finally, I want to talk about the stimulus check we received from the government. For any non-Americans watching, just kind of the premise, there was a government bill passed that gave $1,200 to individuals and $2,400 to married couples who were making a certain amount of income below, I believe, $150,000. At least in our case, below $150,000 for the couple, which was definitely us. And because of that, we did receive our $2,400 check, and we have spent it, I guess. It wasn't really spending, but what we decided to do with our money is put $1,000 extra on our mortgage. Now, previously in my videos, I talked about how, at least when I was teaching and we had those two incomes coming in, as well as when we had a roommate living with us, we definitely had a little bit more discretionary money available, and we actually were putting $1,000 extra towards principal on our mortgage every single month, in addition to our retirement savings and our investments. However, this year, as I've been working on my own, as well as we don't have a roommate anymore, and because of those factors, money's been more tight, and we haven't actually been able to do the extra principal towards mortgage most months. Some months we were able to do, a few $100s, but we have been living more paycheck to paycheck mindset. Of course, we are still contributing to our retirement and investments, still because of the cumulative aspect of those. But it felt really good to put that extra $1,000 in towards principal, as well as we put $1,000 back into our emergency fund, just because in certain months where my particular earnings have been lower and we needed to dip into the emergency fund, I wanted to start replacing it a little bit. And then the remaining $400 actually went towards my March business taxes, just because I also, since I work for myself, I'm responsible for pulling out my own tax values, and that just made it a little easier to take care of the March taxes. That wraps up the way our spending has changed, but like I said, if you wanted to check out the Saving Money video, you can do that over here, as well as you can subscribe to our channel up here. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.